Happy Wednesday. Hopefully I can speak clearly. I have spacers in my teeth. I've never had anything like that before. So anybody who's had braces knows what I'm talking about. I won't go into great detail because I don't want to bore us with it. I want to get on with the show. And I'm really sorry that I missed yesterday. I really missed you guys. And let's see, I keep changing the setting. I'm trying to go for the less is more. So expect it to change some more. I'm stripping it down. I'm sick of having all this stuff to worry about. I just want to focus on the content, and the set stuff is fun, but it is a distraction for me at this point. So let's start talking about, make sure you're still subscribed. I put it over here. I knew that. Make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. And if you're not, please consider doing so. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think will like my channel. Turn on your notification bell to ring. Hit the like button. Got the like button over here in my drawing, and I got the like button here in the little sculpture kind of thing. What is it? It's like plaster of Paris, I think. And maybe if I move this, you might be able to actually see it. So let's see. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for the YouTube, and it's an infotainment platform. And like I said, I've got the spacers in my teeth, so I do notice that I'm like lisping a little bit, and I apologize for that. It's probably only going to get worse. Like, I'll probably adjust to it. By Monday, they're actually putting braces on. So real braces, like the old-fashioned kind, except fortunately the top will be like tooth color, so I won't look like I'm 14. I don't know. I mean, I've sort of kind of needed them my whole life, but never really wanted to get them because it wasn't medically necessary. At this point, it is medically necessary. And so I'll have a nice smile in the end, so I'm not complaining about that. Let's talk about the thumbnail. The thumbnail is a still shot from Katie Couric's interview with to me, a brand new Epstein accuser. Jess Michaels. Sorry, that's her name. So Jess Michaels not only interviewed on Katie Couric's channel, and Katie Couric's channel is amazing. I love that woman. Not only did she interview with her the day before yesterday, she also interviewed, I think it was the day before yesterday. She also interviewed with Aaron Parnas, Parnas. I'll put a link. I already have the link to Katie Couric's in the description. I'll put a link to Aaron's in the description too. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jess's story. Anna Bees, I noticed someone came in and I was hoping it was you. Hey, how are you feeling today? Thanks for asking me, and I want to know how you are. I was exhausted yesterday after they put these 8 spacers in my teeth because the hygienist or the orthodontist assistant, whatever you call her title, she was awesome. And she literally had 42 years experience. And she said that I was the most difficult patient ever. Not my personality, but the space between my teeth. So yeah, I should have gotten those braces when I was a teenager, but since they said they weren't medically necessary, I was like, I'll take a pass. Thanks anyway. So, and it was funny because, like I said, 42 years experience. So she was having trouble getting them in. She was fighting the teeth. The teeth were fighting her back. And then the orthodontist with his big man hands, he had trouble too. It reminded me of like the whole Seinfeld episode with the man hands. Anyway, enough about all that. How are you, my dear? And can you see my face well enough? If you can't, let me know. I see there's like a weird shadow here. I'm just so sick of all the freaking lighting issues. I look all washed out. Dang it. How do I fix that? I don't even know. What do I do? What to do? What to do? So this side is fine. I think this side is more washed out. So there, that's a little bit better, isn't it? Let's see if that'll stay put. Nothing ever will stay put. It's all, like I always say, it's all held together with spit and duct tape, and it's really frustrating. So if I put that down there, then you can see the thumb, and then my I still have this weird like glare off of my cheek. Damn, the lighting is so stupid. Or is it me? Am I stupid? Anna B says, yes, I see you. You always look good. You are so kind. It's all the spit and duct tape that I use, right? So I have kind of had a late start to today with not having enough coffee, not having anything to eat yet. I'm just not going to tell you about all my problems because you know how I always say, if that's my biggest problem, how lucky am I? So yeah, we've got like the world is on fire. I'm being metaphorical, but literally, in Russia, they had an 8.7 or 8 earthquake yesterday. That's insane. That's like almost unbelievable. Honestly, I'm not sure that I believe that was just an act of God. It's Russia. You can't trust anything coming out of Russia. You can hardly trust anything coming out of our country. So now we've got tsunami warnings all over the West Coast, Hawaii, and I'm just, it's kind of like the equivalent of the 9/11 with the Chandra Levy case taking the focus off of Gary Condit. I'll just say that if we have tsunamis all up and down our coastline and the Hawaiian Islands, not to mention all the other islands that are out there too, like the Polynesian Islands, Tahitian Islands. Let's just pray. Let's just focus on what we have so far. So far, they said that the tsunamis were going to hit last night, and I don't think any have. So, yeah, it is exhausting trying to keep up with the freaking gaslighting, isn't it, Annabes? Like, it's so ridiculous. So, first of all, let me just start with Virginia Giuffre. She's pretty pivotal in the our administration with our president right now, with the Ghislaine bullcrap right now, with the Trumpster fire bullcrap. She started working at Mar-a-Lago in mid-2000. My birthday is the same as Virginia Giuffre's birthday. I only realized this a couple weeks ago. That's why I hadn't shared it yet. It's August 9th. So August 9th, I was born in 1967. She was born on my 16th birthday in 1983. So fast forward to August 9th of 2019, and that was the night that allegedly Jeffrey Epstein was Epsteined, right? Yes, everything is overwhelming. Yeah, it is. And I think that's by design. I think, flood the freaking zone, Steve Bannon, you piece of crap. These guys, man, these white guys with their greed and their profit over people, profit over protection and safety. So Virginia Giuffre was hired at Mar-a-Lago in mid-2000. Her birthday's not till August 9th. Mid-2000 would be around June of 2000. She was hired when she was 16. She was poached by Maxwell for little E before her birthday. She was still 16 when she was poached. And let's talk about the poaching thing for a minute, because Trumpster Fire made one of his biggest blunders to date, in my opinion. I think that was yesterday when he was questioned about what he said, saying that actually the fallout with little E was because he was stealing my employees. He was poaching girls from Mar-a-Lago. Pretty much is what the Trumpster fire said. And one of the reporters asking him questions said, "Oh, are you talking about Virginia Giuffre?" Let me just interject here. The most important part of this whole video today is that he's a president. There are a lot of people and names that he cannot remember, but he always remembers her name. Who? Remember the day after she passed away, or maybe it was 2 days after she passed away. It was 24 to 48 hours after she passed away, back in April, when he was asked on the tarmac, "What do you think of what happened to Virginia Giuffre?" And he said, "Oh, it's really horrible. It's really sad for her and the people like her." How in the F did he know who she was? And how, more importantly, how in the world did he know what happened to her? Are you kidding me? How many people commit that sad, devastating end to their lives, self-harm every day? I don't even want to Google it. It's just too tragic. How did he know who she was and what happened to her? You know, like when there's 4 soldiers missing from, what was that? It wasn't Lebanon. It was an L country. Sorry. When the 4 soldiers were missing, and he said, "I know nothing about it." You asking me this question is the first time I'm hearing about it right now. Let me try to find out what country that is, because I hate having those open-ended things. 4 U.S. soldiers went missing in a marsh and were later found deceased. Lithuania. Yeah, I would never have pulled that up out of me brain. So, and when was this? This was just a few weeks before Virginia passed away. So he didn't know anything about 4 U.S. soldiers, which I don't believe him. I think he's lying. And if he was being honest and he really didn't know, he should have been insanely embarrassed, and he should have abruptly ended that conversation and gotten briefed, in my opinion. But when he says, "I don't know anything about it," that's one of his tells. It's a con job, one of his tells. It's a witch hunt, one of his tells. "I know nothing about it. This is the first time I'm hearing about it." Bullcrap. You're an effing liar. Pants on fire. Yes, everything is overwhelming. You're a Leo. My husband was a Leo. Yeah, so I am less than 2 weeks from my birthday. Replaced pinned message. And I'm so sorry about the loss of your husband, my dear. Deny, deny, deny. Yeah. Yeah, why would he remember a spa employee from 30 or whatever years ago? Right, 25 years ago. She worked for him for maybe a couple of months. Her father worked there longer. It looked like, when I looked it up on when I was live the day before yesterday, that Sky Roberts was hired right before her. He was a maintenance man, and I'm not sure how long he worked there for. I thought he was employed there for a really long time, but I could be incorrect about that. Anyway, her father got her the job. She was 16. They're always trying to make her 17 years old, and she was not. She was close to 17, but just like Kylie Rodney. Hello, Kylie Rodney was 16 when she went missing on August 6th of 2022. She did not turn 17 until I think it was September 1st. But she never did turn 17. She passed away when she was 16, as far as we know. And when it comes to crimes against children, age matters a lot. A lot. But these crimes that were committed, even against someone like the woman in the thumbnail. I'm still not real familiar with her, so I have to look up her name again. I apologize. She's amazing. She's such a great speaker. Jessica Michaels. She was 22, and for the victims that were not underage, it's harder for them to get legal action taken, and it's also harder for them to grapple with. So she has had a lifetime of therapy, and she is very outspoken, and she's running the circuit now. And I, for one, am so grateful, because she's not only helping herself, she's helping everyone, in my opinion, who can hear what she has to say, and hopefully helping our country too, because what happened to her with little E is kind of similar to what happened to Jean Carroll with little T, and so many others who allege or accuse, or like in Jean Carroll's situation, have even had Donnie convicted of the essay that she was subjected to as a full-grown woman. And it sounds like she was married too when that happened. These horrible atrocities, the violence against women, the disregard and the graping of girls, of children, and adults is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that we have these people in leadership positions. It's unacceptable for them to be changing the subject. I'm just incensed. I'm so yeah, I was going to tell you some about like what I remember most profound from Jess Michaels' account of her situation. So I'll give you a quick thumbnail of it, but first let me read the last two comments you made here, Anna Bees. I don't think as many MAGA people have turned away from him as creators are trying to portray. You know, I hear you, Anna Bees. I think that they have. I think that MAGA has had a firm grip on social media since its inception, that they saw this freight train coming across the Brooklyn Bridge of artificial intelligence and social media, and they got on it. I mean, think about that one guy, the guy from Miami, from the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department. I think it was in 2006 that he fled to Russia, and he's been there doing bots and artificial intelligence and like 150 different fake news channels to the US ever since 2006. So he's had a hell of an impact on all of this. So I think it's really hard to gauge what's real and what's not real, and that's exactly what these MFs want. They still think the deep state are trying to bring him down. And I think that they are the deep state. Fredfield. I want to say Fearless Fred. Wasn't that your name before? Fearless Fredfield or something? Hola, nice to see you. So let me give you the thumbnail of what Jess described, what impressed upon me the most. So she was a 22-year-old professional dancer in New York City. She got a gig. She was hired by little E to do massage therapy, and he was masterful in gaslighting her and manipulating her from jump, and he graped her at their second meeting. So the first meeting was an interview where he acted like she wasn't good enough, but then she got the job, and then when she came back, he just was extraordinarily controlling, condescending. And in her description, and I'm, like I said, I have the link to Katie Couric's interview where she goes through her whole experience, and I highly recommend watching that from start to finish. It's very, very valuable to me. I've watched it twice already. She goes through in great detail without being, like TMI, but really owning her experience and what it was like to actually be in a frozen shock phase. A real frozen shock phase. And when you do that, when you freeze up, just like when you do the fight or flight, you're responding to a life-threatening situation and you're instinctively doing precisely the right thing to survive the situation. And it's all happening so fast you can't even register. But I think it's really important for all of us to identify that. She's identified it. It took her probably 30 years and a therapist having to tell her straight up, like, you froze because you had a good brain and your brain was keeping you alive. And that's what your brain said to do. Because, yeah, for all we know, if she had tried to leave or fight back, she could have been unalived. We don't know how many people these folks have unalived. So let me jump tracks real quick because there's so much that I want to say. This might be a long video today until I'm starving to death. That temple on Epstein Island that I spoke about in my video the day before yesterday, the one that is kind of like reminiscent of an Egyptian temple, I guess. It's like the blue and white stripes, and it's used to have like a gold dome on it, but the gold dome was destroyed in, I think, Hurricane Maria. That temple, as they call it on Epstein Island, has no windows or doors on it, to my understanding. It looks like it has a couple of windows and a couple of doors. Even what it looks like it has looks creepy because it's got that real, like, lockdown kind of look on it. But those windows and doors are allegedly painted on. They're not real. So what that kind of relatively small building perched on that like little lookout cliff is anybody's guess. And I just instinctively get a very, very sinking, awful feeling when I see it. It has been confirmed that there are tunnels on Epstein Island. It has also been, but they're kind of squirmy about that. It's also definitely 100% been confirmed that there are layers, underground layers, not a layer, layers on Epstein Island. So when anybody entraps another person, whether they're taking them to another country or not, whether they're taking their passport, their traveling papers or not, when someone takes control over another person's ability to move about the world freely, that is the definition of kidnapping. So almost all of Little E's victims have been kidnapped. So even if they were not kidnapped for more than a day, they were still kidnapped. If they were not able to make their own decisions about how they wanted to move from room to room or space to space or in a room. Anyway, let's go back to Jess Michaels and her telling of her story. And, she's got such poise and such confidence. And she has a company right now called the Three Joannes, because a friend of hers named Joanne was one of the people that helped her with so much of her recovery from this trauma over the years. But the whole purpose of her company is to lift the burden of shame from survivors. Her recommendation, and this was from the interview with Parnas, is his name Josh or Eric Parnas. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description to his interview from today too. I'm not real familiar with his channel, but I have seen his channel before, and he's also really good. Her advice in that interview, the two interviews were really different, which is interesting because every time you tell your story, you're going to tell it differently, even if you're trying to tell it the same. And you're going to come to new realizations every single time you tell your story. That's why it's important for people to tell their story. It's therapeutic, it's cathartic, it helps them, it helps other people. So her advice is, if something traumatic has happened to you, tell 3 people that you trust. And I think that's really incredible advice. And I want to add to that, to be forewarned that no matter how much you trust these people and no matter how wonderful you may believe that they are, that their impression and their feedback, their response literally has almost nothing to do with you and what you just told them. Their response has everything to do with themselves and their own experiences. So you might get a lot of support from the 3 people that you decide are safe to tell, and you may not. You may get one of them that just is quite the opposite. So just be aware whenever you're talking to anybody about anything, all any of us are doing is projecting, seriously. Even when we're trying to be empathetic and we're trying to be very receptive to someone else's pain, it's still more of a snapshot, an example of who we are and what we are than it is of who they are and what they are. So let me drink a little coffee, get the brain kick-started some more. I can't believe these things in my teeth, how weird they are. It sort of feels like you have like big things stuck between your teeth, because you do. That's exactly what it is. They're like teeny tiny rubber bands. And the way they get them in there, if they fall out, then I have to try to put them back in myself. I can call and have them do it, but I'm just hoping that they don't fall out, but they probably will between now and Monday. I'm trying to be so careful. Yes, definitely. They are the deep state, Anna Bees says. It's just so weird. It's the double think, double speak, you know, them trying to say the Dems are the deep state. It's like, what the F are you talking about? Anna B says, I agree. I understand that frozen shock stage. And, you know, it's really sad to me that Dylan Mortensen in the Idaho 4 case, that Brett Payne wrote that into the PCA, the probable cause affidavit, when they arrested Koberger in the end of December of 2022. She was in an 8-hour frozen shock phase. Let me just say, I do believe that someone could possibly be in an 8-hour frozen shock phase, but I don't believe that she was. And when people lie, then things don't make sense. None of her story ever made sense. And I gave her a long time to let it roll out and make sense. Like I bought her story hook, line, and sinker on day one. I was like, yeah, she's a victim. She's a survivor. And then now that it's been coming up on 3 years this November since this happened, and now all of a sudden they keep coming out with more new information about this whole thing. Like, give me an effing break. This is ridiculous. Excuse me. And I don't think it's any accident that these new things are coming out at this point in time. Again, anything to distract from little E. And, you know, right now the true crime is extremely extremely popular. It has been for a couple of years. And talking politics online has not been that popular, but it has been becoming more popular this year. And like I have said since the day before the election, when I started speaking about my true feelings on the topics, there's been a head-on collision of the politics and true crime, and it is 1,000% exemplified in this whole Maxwell, little e, little t pile of crap. Not to mention, I don't even want to say these names, Yahoo Netton, or this disgusting Bove Emile, and I'm saying their names like in the wrong order. He is the piece of crap attorney that's been Donnie's attorney 3 times, who has just been confirmed as a lifetime attorney for the Court of Appeals. Lifetime. Federal Court of Appeals. That's going to come in handy. Probably like today. That's probably already coming in handy with Ghislaine. Again, timing is everything. I'm just spitting nails, am I not? Fearless Fred? Let's see. Oh gosh, that's crazy. They had these girls enslaved. Oh, you mean little E and Maxwell and little T? Because yeah, when Donnie started really describing that he got mad because little E was stealing his people, as if he owns them, and as if little E was coming over hunting them like with a spear or something. I mean, seriously, I don't think I'm the only one who had these images conjured up from what El Presidente was saying. And then he just keeps digging himself in deeper, going on to say, yeah, after it happened a few times and I realized it was happening, I told him, stop it. And then he did it again. And I said, you're out of here. That's it. When really the truth is that little E may have fired him as a best buddy, as a BFF. These creeps, man. These creeps. All those freaking secrets that were alluded to in the birthday letter that Donnie swears is fake. Fake news. Fake news. It's a con job. Again, those are his tells. Fake news has always been a tell. That was from the first term. Con job 2. Witch hunt 2. There are many migrant children are missing. Yeah. Anna Bees, I thought you were going to talk about the starvation too. It's so god awful. Dylan is a liar. Anna, I am feeling pretty good. Left work at 10 o'clock, end of my schedule, and I got ears lower on the way home. And got my ears lower on the way home. I don't know if that's a typo or if that's like something to do with like hearing loss, like you stopped at the doctor and had your hearing aids adjusted, Fred. I don't know if you want to clarify. Anna B says, I put Brian's pics side by side, one from the pleading guilty proceedings and one from his sentencing. He looks like he is both pics, but there are slight differences besides the haircut and tan. Well, and people do change even in the course of a year, especially prison. I mean, look at how different Chris Watts looked after some prison time. Look at how different Ghislaine looks. Look at how different little E looked. Not that he really had prison time. He had a month of jail time before he was Epsteined. And yeah, Ghislaine could easily get Epsteined. Easily. Or who knows, maybe the tsunami will get her. I mean, come on. Oh my God. Nice, Fred. I could have stayed over at work. Ears lowered, haircut. Oh, you had your ears lowered so that you could see your ears better. I gotcha. I've never heard that term. Forgive me. Had my ears lowered. That's funny. Yeah. I'm going to look so different with braces. I think they're doing the full thing on Monday. So today's Wednesday. It's the 30th of July. It's about almost 2 in the afternoon here on the Eastern Standard Seaboard time, I like to say. But there wasn't much time between both things. The things with Coburger. Is that what you're referring to, Annapies? Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to share about my impressions with Jess Michaels. So she goes by Jess. Her name is Jessica. She's the person in the thumbnail. Her and Katie Couric are really cute in their interview because they look a lot alike and their glasses are a little similar. And they did a phenomenal job, both of them. Katie Couric was excellent. Jess was excellent. She said in that video with Katie Couric something profound, in my opinion. She said a lot of things that were profound, handfuls. One of the most profound is she basically said in so many words, I can tell you exactly what's in the Epstein files. I know what's in the Epstein files. This is Jess saying it, not me, but I believe her. The victim impact statements are what some of the most crucial files that are referred to as the Epstein files. That makes a lot of sense. And we're talking hundreds, if not over 1,000, of known victims. They've never said how many statements they have. We know that well over 100 victims settled out of court with Little E's estate. His estate has paid out, I want to say $100 million in these settlements. I'm not sure. Don't ding me if my numbers are off. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So in my video the day before yesterday, I was talking about Virginia being the third accuser to succumb to quote unquote self-unaliving. And then I made a comment kind of flippant and I was being sarcastic, and I wanted to point that out for anybody who might not have caught on to that. When I was speaking of Leesa Patrick, the 29-year-old, she was the first one to be found deceased in a seedy motel in 2017. And she has a twin sister. And I meant no offense when I said, oh, well, it was a seedy motel, so that one's not as important. I was being 1,000% sarcastic. Of course, she's just as important as anybody in a nice hotel or anywhere else. So when I reviewed the video, I was like, I don't know that everybody watching that would know that I was being very tongue-in-cheek. And this is why it's important to just not be sarcastic, especially online, because it's hard to know, especially if you don't have the back and forth. It's easy to take things out of context, but I wanted to be explicitly clear that, of course, Leesa Patrick, 29 years old, discovered unalive in a hotel room, allegedly by overdose, by self. But, again, natural, accidental misadventure by self. Like, that's what all of these things are. Getting Epsteined. And it could be that it was genuine and authentically by self. And let's just say it was. Still, that's the end result of what happened with her after being horribly abused by these monsters. And then Trumpster fires like, well, I might just spring Ghislaine and I might just spring Sean Combs because, oh, they've been treated so unfairly. It's like, no, it's because they have dirt on you because you hung out with them and you did the things that they did and they saw you and they have evidence. That's the truth. Like, when is that guy going to just curl up and go back under the rock from whence he came? He's so gross. How on earth can he be a world leader? But I guess the answer's in the question. Okay. So the second, Virginia was the third of the little E and Ghislaine accusers to pass away unattended and allegedly by the natural, accidental, self-inflicted misadventures, right? Virginia was 10 days before the Diddy trial started. Timing is everything. And then but she was the third. The second one, let me see if I remember her name or if I have it real handy. The second one is the one who was the mother of 5, found in a fancy hotel in Palm Beach, 37 years old, had a couple $100,000 in the bank, and her husband were about to sign the papers to purchase another property. And as you know, I just transitioned out of one of my notebooks. It's so frustrating. I need to have like a whole bunch of computer screens in front of me is what I need, huh? That's how some of these content creators do it. Plus they have their staff. I'll take one or the other, please. Where is the list of those names? I think it's right here. Carolyn Adriano is the one with the 5 kids. So Leesa Patrick was the 2017. And then what was it that I was noticing also happened in 2017 in the video the day before yesterday? Wasn't it one of the guys that we were talking about that passed away? Like, was it Chester Bennington? Was he the July 20th of 2017 and Leesa Patrick was May 30th of 2017? Remember when we were talking about Bob Saget and Twitch and Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell, and we were talking about Ann Hesh and all that stuff. Anyway, one of these people, I think, was the July 20th of 2017, and then I think Leesa Patrick was May 30th of 2017. It might be the reverse. But Carolyn Adriano, again, it's really important to note that her being found deceased by alleged overdose, and maybe it was an overdose inflicted by self, or maybe it was an overdose not inflicted by self. You just don't know. When someone passes away unattended, you just don't know. That was 2023, so that it was less than a year after Ghislaine was convicted. And then remember, as much as little T and little E were BFFs, so were their chickadees, Ghislaine and Ivana. And that has been deep, what is it, deep 6th or 86th? That has been in the vault. Maria Farmer just outed that last week with a very simple story that she told to CNN about how she was in the car with Ghislaine and Ivana when Ghislaine said, "Stop right here," and jumped out and gave her business card to little kid, a little girl in a school uniform. It was like 3 p.m, right when the kids got out, and they were at little E's house, and she said, "Oh, the newbies are getting out. I got to go to work. Let's go." And they all hopped in the car together, chauffeured, and Maria tells this story almost 30 years later. Thank God. Thank God she's still alive. She's fought cancer twice. Thank goodness she is feeling confident and safe enough to tell the story. And hopefully she is safe enough to tell the story safely and not get Epstein herself. And her little sister, too. So in the last few days, Annie Farmer has come out and spoken publicly more as well. And Annie Farmer was one of 4 or 5 accusers who testified against Ghislaine. If Ghislaine gets sprung, these people are not only going to be devastated, they're also going to be in more danger, in my opinion. And I'm sure they are well aware. Anyway, let me keep up with you guys. I will try to email you the pics. Thanks, Anna Bees. I don't think anyone would think that. What was that? 7 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Anna Bees, if you want to say. Anyway, so back to when Carolyn Adriano was found non-responsive, fatally non-responsive in her hotel room about a year after Ghislaine's sentencing. And we know that Ivana, too, was found non-responsive in her Manhattan apartment at the bottom of the stairs 2 weeks and 2 days after Ghislaine's sentencing. The ex-wife of the Trumpster fire probably knew everything that Ghislaine knew, that Ghislaine still knows. Her just happening to pass away the day before the 3 depositions. Yeah, don't get me started on all that. I've said it so many times on my channel, but I just can't underscore it enough. And fortunately, some of these bigger channels are talking about this stuff, and I am grateful. And again, I started talking about those 3 VPs that passed away in that helicopter crash, the 3 Trump Taj Mahal VPs that passed away in a helicopter crash in 1990. And Ivana was going to go on a trip with one of their wives to help her get through it. And that, when she was packing for the trip, was when her estranged husband violently violated her and assaulted her, and she spoke about it, and then she later retracted it. And then the other VP, the female VP from the Taj Mahal in Trump Tower in Atlantic City, that came forward 20 years later and said the day that those 3 VPs passed away in that helicopter crash, her boss said to her, "You're going to hate me for this, but I can't pass up an opportunity for publicity." And so he lied, and he told the press that he was supposed to be on that helicopter with them to grab the headlines the next day, because that's the piece of crap that our dear leader is. He does that every freaking time. He cannot stop himself. He's got 0 impulse control. 0. Yes, like I said, I'm spitting nails. So Anna says Brian pled guilty 7-2 and was sentenced 7-23. Be safe, Fred. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Right now, exactly. Right now, with anything to distract from the e-files. Why does anybody care about the e-files? Just let it go. Let it go. I'm over here cutting ribbons at golf courses in Scotland and making fake deals with the European uh, United Countries leader and fake deals with China. Come on. No one cares about little girls getting violated and having their lives destroyed. And now, actually, people do care a lot. And nobody is sorry except dear leader. So yeah, it is absolutely exhausting trying to chase down an effing gaslighter, especially when they have that much power like dear leader. Most often, I think these types of gaslighters are in positions like that. They have leadership roles in schools and churches, in Boy Scouts, cults. It's really hard for people to keep up with the shenanigans, and especially if they believe in the administration, if they believe in the authority. Trust your authority. No, question authority at all times. And little girls disappearing. Thank you, Anna Bees. You're so good keeping it super sharp on track. Yeah. It's pretty unbelievable. And then all of the ones that we don't even know about. So, Anna Bees, OMG, are you familiar with the woman that went missing? Amy Bradley went missing off of a cruise ship in 1998. So we're at about 27 years. Amy Bradley went missing off of a cruise ship in 1998. It's been in the news a lot lately. 27 years later, there's been over a handful of sightings of her. It seems to me that she was kidnapped off of that ship. I got to tell you some things because I've heard of her case, but I watched the 3-part Netflix series yesterday, and I'm so glad I did. So she was not a little girl that went and disappeared. She was, I think, 23 years old, traveling with her brother and her mother and her father, and she had just graduated high school, and she disappeared off the cruise ship like so many others. Imagine if these migrants from an Anglo country, people would really be up in arms. Right, like Helena Hutchins. When they're white and beautiful, yeah, people care more. So Amy Bradley, what do I want to say about this? Going missing off of this cruise ship, and then the captain of the cruise ship, despite the hard, solid evidence that she's been cited since that cruise, the disgusting captain tries to perpetuate the myth that she must have been suicidal or accidentally fell overboard. And he's sticking to that because he works for billionaires that own that cruise line and he wants to keep his job safe, right? Sick freak. He can step off. Anyway, Amy Bradley, one of the very last places she was ever seen is in Aruba, called Carlos and Charlie's. Does that ring a bell? Aruba rings a bell. Carlos and Charlie's rings a bell. I was like, that's not the same place Natalie Holloway was hanging out with Joran Vandersloot and the Calpo brothers, was it? So I looked up where was the last bar and grill where Natalie Holloway was seen in 2005, the night she disappeared. And yeah, it was Carlos and Charlie's in Aruba. So that tells me that there's a very, very high likelihood that Carlos and Charlie's is a hunting ground for these poachers like little E, like little T, For all we know, Natalie is in one of those freaking tunnels on Little E Island, for all we know. I don't think there's ever been definitive proof of her passing away. And Euron has told a million different stories, and like you're going to believe a damn thing that MF says. And then remember when his father died of a heart attack, like that seems so related to the stress and the pressure that he was under for lying for his disgusting son. And there was a lot of evidence that she was being trafficked initially. Remember when Dr. Phil got involved? Man, why do these people like Dr. Phil and Oprah have to be so good and then be so bad? Oh, funny, not funny. Anyway, Boob Tube is here in the house. I saw your freaking post, Boob Tube. It blew my mind. It blew my mind. Milo, the relative of Zanime, the guy who texted Upchurch and was like, call me, call me, call me. I made a comment on your post. I was the first one to comment. That was a really good post. You guys check out BoobTube's channel and the post, the community post. She's been I don't even know if BoobTube is a she or he, so I call BoobTube they. They've been nailing it. I was always that kid who asked why. I have worked hard to never lose the ability to ask why and seek truthful answers, no matter how upsetting and inconvenient the answer may be. So I remember a bumper sticker from the 80s that said, trust authority, and then the trust was crossed out and it said question authority. And then I remember a friend of mine had a t-shirt that said question authority, and the question was crossed out, and it said F authority. And he's awesome. I'm still friends with him, actually. BT, thank you for always bringing it. Hello, Miss Annabees. And you always bringing it too. You too really do. I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you here. It's an honor. I nearly threw up posting it. Yeah, and it's such a long post. I read the whole thing and I only commented on 2 points. What was the other point that I commented on? I mean, it was a lot. That post, you said a lot. That was overwhelming to me as well. And I also appreciated that work so much because, yeah, you just put it all out there. Yeah, I knew that's the kind of through you meant. I will have to look it up. You're probably doing voice to text, right? I haven't seen it. When you trust authority, it leads to what happened in Germany in 1941, to be honest. Yeah. So, Little E is not someone that we can really trust, but apparently in one of his recorded interviews with Steve Bannon, maybe, and Steve Bannon's been coming out with these recordings trying to maybe distract, maybe trying to get some attention. You know, it's not fair that everybody else is getting all the attention when he can get some attention too. I mean, he's just gross. He's one of these billionaire pigs who is very hurtful and harmful to anybody near him, in my opinion. And so he was tape recording interviews that he did with Little E. He was going to try to make like a 60 minutes type of episode to reinvent Little E from being the dirtbag that he is, always will be historically. I think he's deceased, so I think it's past tense. Oh, this is funny. I got to say this before I forget. That less people believe that Little E self-unalived right now than believe that he is still alive. Hilarious, because I think the idea of him still being alive is pretty preposterous too. There are so many people that needed him deceased. And if they were going to just sneak him out of there, then why wouldn't they have just not have arrested him? in the first place when you look at who was in charge of these things. The president of at that point in time, 2019, and the attorney general at that point in time. So anyway, back to the interview that where Little E claims that Donnie spoke with him about his displeasure of his side thing being preggers when she was in her early 20s when he first hooked up with Tiffany's mom. And Tiffany's mom was pregnant with her. And Little E says in this interview, I think it was the Bannon interview, that Donnie fantasized about, like, well, what if she just fell down a flight of stairs if I pushed her or something like that? And he ended up marrying her for like 18 months. I spoke about this in my last video the day before yesterday. And then lo and behold, fast forward 30 years, and that's exactly what allegedly happened to Ivana. Allegedly? What a quinky dink. Exactly, BT, we can never let it happen again. Miro and Patel, you commented on. Right. Thank you, BoobTube. That was very extreme to me. About 6 months ago, I was looking at some Sierra Nevada nature group that Patel was a part of a very long time ago. It had a photograph of him and everything. And I kind of did the cartoon, like rub my eyes. I was like, no. I had to go back and look it up a second time. I'm like, no, and maybe that's a different Patel that just looks a lot like him with the same first name. I mean, Patel is a very, very common last name for people from India. And it was a long time ago. It looked, from the photograph, it looked like maybe 15 or 20 years. I don't remember. Maybe you do. But anyway, I was like, that's just kind of interesting that he just happens to be affiliated with like a nature conservancy tree hugging group in the Sierra Nevadas. Huh. What a quinky dink. So I don't think I ever even said anything about when I saw it. Like, I was going to share that information, and maybe I did share it on my channel, but I don't think I did. Not that I recall anyway. So when you posted that yesterday, I was like, ding, 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 ding. OMG. Yeah. I emailed you this morning, Jazz. Yes, Patel is very common. They own a huge portion of American hotels. Yes, actually, I'm indirectly related to, through my sister's marriage. She's indirectly related to those Patels that own those fancy hotels. It might even be like Hilton's. I'm not sure. The Hilton chain. I'm not sure. She went to one of their family weddings, and it was like super extra extravagant, fancy, like Maxwell Plum. That was weird, looking up Maxwell Plum restaurant the day before yesterday and seeing that it reopened just down the street from Mar-a-Lago, basically, like 15 minutes away. Yes, there are doctors named Patel. Yeah, I had a really good doctor last name Patel. I liked her a lot. I'd like to see that pic you found. Oh, yeah, I'll see if I can find it. I thought that you must have found it too. It was like a Sierra Nevada forestry nature conservancy kind of thing. And it was like a pamphlet, but it was online, and it had photographs, I think, of like 20 people. And I just happened to be scrolling through it, and I was like, that looks like Cash Patel. Oh, look, it says it is Cash Patel. But could it be the same Cash Patel, or could it be a different Cash Patel? I don't know. Yep. Marriott's and Hilton's, BoobTube says. Nope, never saw it. That is wild. I figured that was what you saw and what you were referring to. I will write down, so I don't forget, that's one of my priorities, is to find it. Tahoe. nature forestry. I'll see what I can find, and I'll email you if I find it. Okay, so in the Netflix series that I watched yesterday about Amy Bradley, and I'm so glad I did. You know, I was watching it even though it seemed totally like I wanted to focus on other things. I was like, you know, I just have a feeling that there's going to be some kind of crossover, because there often is. And I know that I keep seeing her name coming up a lot lately, even though it happened in 98. And one of the things that they talk about in the miniseries is that they pull out a copy of People magazine when Chandra Levy was on the cover. And again, I always use that Chandra Levy example with Gary Condit, as that his arse was grass. He was under so much scrutiny and under fire, and then 9/11 happened and it resolved everything for him, and he got to skate away scot-free. And I've been saying it with this whole little E scandal, that little T just needs a 9/11 type of thing to happen. Like, oh, I don't know, how about a 10 on the Richter scale for an earthquake that has like a tsunami that just takes away all these pesky idiots that keep asking him about those dumb files that are just so boring. Okay, Vladdy, you think you can hook me up? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that it was a man-made earthquake, but he needed something earth-shattering, and just really good timing, I guess. Oh, it's because God chose him. I forgot. That's right. All right. So with the cover of People magazine having Chandra Levy, they also had 3 other missing people. Molly Bish, who was a 16-year-old from Massachusetts, who was found 3 years later, and Jill Berman, who was disappeared in 2000 in Bloomington, Indiana, and found her remains 3 years later. Molly Bish was fatal also. So Chandra Levy and then Amy Bradley. So, oh, and just FYI, Natalie Holloway did not go missing until May 30th of 2005. So that was 7 years after Amy Bradley. But Carlos and Charlie's could be like the equivalent of a Mar-a-Lago down there in Aruba, where a Jeffrey Epstein type might just go poaching for hot, fresh meat. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, Molly and Jill were found unalive. A year later, Chandra's remains were found in Rock Creek Park, which I don't buy any of that crap. They had like I think it was an illegal immigrant. I know it was an immigrant that they, in my opinion, pinned it on. And then you've got Amy Bradley that's still missing. And it also brought to my mind's eye somebody that we haven't spoken about in a long time, and it's been over a year now. And I want to also say that Chandra Levy, we just hit not Chandra Levy, sorry, Natalie Holloway, we just hit the 20-year mark. 20-year mark for Holloway. It would be about next year, it'll be 25 years for Chandra Levy. Very, very sad. And we're at the 25 year for Molly Bish and Jill Berman, I think is her name, or Bayman, Behrman, the one from Bloomington, Indiana. She was riding her bike. I can't remember how old Jill was. I think she might have been 16 also. My phone's on the floor. It fell. I'm not going to worry about it. And I was not aware that the reason that our dear leader sold the pageants allegedly was because he was forced to because of his racist statements. Allegedly. It's interesting, huh? Yeah. Kind of jumping all over the place, just making sure that I got the things off of that page. What say you? Yep, Marriott's and Hilton's, never saw it. Special agent in charge, Sid Patel, is on SAC FBI. He recently was involved with arresting a bunch of Singhs with gang activities. So thank you, BoobaTube. What about the mob? You know, what about the truckie mob? What about the mob affiliates down there in Aruba? What about mob affiliations with cruise ships? And it's making me think of that George Smith, the young man that went missing off of a cruise ship 25 years ago, about that it was like 3 or 4 young men from Russia that were last seen with him, that were persons of interest. And then you got the Russian mob, right? KCRA carried the presser live 11 days ago. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. BoobTube. LOL, they say DJT is an anointed man of God. I know. I do not share the same sentiment. Well, and remember that video that I made a couple weeks ago that got censored, that got removed, where he said somebody very special like me. I was saved by somebody very special like me. And again, this was when he's in Texas and there's little freaking 8-year-old girls that drowned to death unnecessarily at a camp. And it took Kristi Noem 72 hours to say, oh, sure, go ahead and do some emergency relief. And then he shows up a week later and starts talking about somebody very special that saved him, like himself. And then yesterday, the day before, talking about starving babies and children, he again starts talking about himself when asked about little E stealing his slaves at the Mar-a-Lago. Again, we're talking about victims, and he starts talking about himself in relation to admitting that he knows who Virginia Giuffre is, admitting that he knows what happened on his property, admitting that he knew back then. Like at the same time that he says he doesn't know, he says people told me. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, but he just always brings it back to me. And then he says, you know, Virginia didn't have any complaints about my establishment. It's like, well, she's not alive, so we can't ask her. But yeah, she probably didn't. I think she only worked there for a week. She probably had a complaint that she wasn't getting paid enough, but she was like the towel girl, and she was probably just really happy to have a job and a roof over her head after having already been trafficked and ran away from that and been homeless. No, the fact that he answered that question a day or two after she passed away, about her passing away, with it's very sad what happened to her, admitting in his answer that he knew who she was and he knew what happened to her, is effing crazy. And again, he did that exact same thing when asked about her by name, if she was one of the people that little E poached from Mar-a-Lago. And he sort of says, I don't know. And then he basically says yes. Again, knowing her by name and knowing that she was poached from Mar-a-Lago like a wild animal or a slave. All those mobs are tied to Chicago and New York City mobs, and I'm not going to lie. DJT does have mob ties as well. Mob worked with CIA. Look into Sam Gian, Gia, Gianchana. Probably not saying that right, but yeah, I mean the Chicago, and the New York and the Atlantic City and Vegas and Reno. I mean, yeah, all the gambling stuff, especially with like the Vegas, Reno, and Atlantic City. It's all that. And what did those three VPs know in 1990 that passed away in that helicopter crash? That what did they know that was embarrassing to DJT? Or I don't know, maybe they were planning on leaking some information, or who knows. Or maybe it was just a fluke. But then for that disgusting piece of crap to steal the headlines and steal the thunder from the deceased and their families and straight up lie and say, oh, yeah, I was going to be on that plane. Oh, dear me, my. Again, it's all about him. He's so gross. I'm sure that, oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Well, like when you look at the video footage of him on January 6th with his long black coat and his black gloves, and, you got to go fight, fight, fight. I mean, he looks like a freaking cartoon douchebag from Batman. I mean, he's just a freaking bad guy. Freaking Joker. I posted up some statospheric arsenal injection via sulfur dioxide stuff. Oh no, a day or two ago, a patent link was in the comments. Weather modification is not good. Dang, boob tube, you are playing with fire. No, I'm just kidding. I'm glad you're doing that. I'll check it out. I missed that one. Well, I don't have proof, but in my opinion, it is most likely absolutely Annabees, and I can prove it. Oh, yeah. Well, and then remember, the guy who owns Rainmaker went on CNN a week or so after those terrible floods in Kerrville, Texas, to defend his company, and yet he stated very clearly that they did cloud seeding just south of the Mystic camp 2 days before the disaster. So he admitted that they did cloud seeding on July 2nd, just south of there. And he was explaining this as he's trying to say that it didn't have anything to do with anything. But it's like, well, that's weird. 2 days before, you happen to be seeding clouds right there. Interesting. Yeah. And right, if it was good, then why wouldn't it be done more often? Because it's only those states, Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming, where it's done a lot. And then there's some states that just don't even allow it. And then there's some states that do it in moderation. I saw that one. Good job. Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you, Annabees. But he bankrupted a casino. Right, exactly. And he bankrupted it, I think, in October of 2016, and then won the election in November of 2016. So they... Actually, and let me take that back. I don't know the exact dates of when he bankrupted the casino in the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City. October of 2016 is when they closed it. So I was just assuming that meant bankrupted, but I could be wrong. I don't want to assume nothing. I want to look that up before I make a statement like that. So he closed the Taj Mahal. And when he closed the Taj Mahal in 2016, so that was 9 years ago now, almost, he didn't just bankrupt his casino, he turned Atlantic City into a ghost town. Like, that city is ruined. You can look it up online, you can see documentaries about it, and it's all attributed to him and his stupid Taj Mahal crap. I just want people to weigh the evidence for themselves. Exactly. If you watch the radar time lapse over radar and the MIC map, you can see it grow like a hurricane, not a normal storm. Guaranteed it was weather modification. Are you talking about the one in Texas, BoobTube? Dang. Oh, he bankrupted more than one of his business ventures. He, I think, applied for bankruptcy or filed bankruptcy 6 times at least, that he'll admit. He's been bailed out by Bank Day Rothschilds. He's also been bailed out by Bank Day USSR. Not to mention a whole bunch of others. Yes, Jazz. That's the storm I'm talking about. Wow. Oh, and they knew, like, that area of the Guadalupe River is famous for being full of camps the 4th of July weekend. It's like, that's just like a standard thing, that there's going to be a lot of campers along the Guadalupe River on the 4th of July, and a lot of kid campers. I mean, when all those kids were still missing, I just got this weird feeling like it was a competition of, well, which kids do you care about more? The ones that are missing right now that maybe can still be saved, or the ones that little E injured 30 years ago? Which kids do you care about more? When it's like, you can care about all the kids. And then to find out that nobody that was lost in that flood, there were no survivors found after the 4th of July. So it happened in the wee hours of the 4th of July, and all of the people that survived were recovered on the 4th of July. Every person recovered after Friday was not living. So for Kristi Noem to tie up the rescue aid until Monday, and I mean, Donnie did some foolish things delaying help as well. And then he goes there when they still have missing bodies, at that point in time. A week later, when he shows up and he starts talking about when he got his ear nicked. I mean, sure, the guy asked him a question about it, but he just is so happy to shift the conversation to me. I'm sick of people calling me stupid for caring about kids. Do people do that to you, BoobTube? You are so smart. What's your email? You don't have to tell me. I just wanted to send you the pics of the 2 Brians, and you can tell me if I'm tripping. Well, Anna Bees, if you send them to me, I'll forward them to BoobTube, and then they'll have your email too. So we can do it that way, so that if BoobTube doesn't want to put email up, that's fine. Happy to facilitate like that. Yes. So don't worry so much about the little E lists. Worry about the little E files, and know that what they're hiding are the victim statements, according to Jess Michaels. And I think she knows exactly what she's talking about. So remember the crazy shooting that happened in New York City a couple of days ago, that happened the same day as a crazy shooting in Vegas? It reminded me so much of New Year's, when there was a crazy person with a truck driving into a crowd of people in New Orleans, and a crazy person with a cyber truck blowing himself up in front of a Trump Tower in Vegas, both on New Year's Day. So here, a couple of days ago, we had a crazy gunman in Vegas, shot 6 people. I think 3 of them were deceased. And then we had the crazy person in downtown Manhattan shot a lot of people, and at least 4 were deceased, and one of them was an off-duty officer. And we keep getting more first responders in fatal situations than I've ever seen happen before. So when that shooter in Manhattan went into the building that he went into, where he shot it up and took lives of innocent people, the NFL headquarters was in that building, and a company called Blackstone. So we're all familiar with BlackRock. Blackstone and BlackRock are like cousin companies. BlackRock is worth $1 trillion approximately. Blackstone is worth about $500 billion, just under $500 billion. And BlackRock and Blackstone are both investment firms. There's another black company connected to those two, BlackRock and Blackstone, and it's called Black Cube. Black Cube is totally different. It's like a CIA kind of company. So that little trifecta of Black Cube, BlackRock, and Blackstone, and it was in the comment section on Down the Rabbit Hole that somebody else mentioned that, and so I looked it all up and was like, damn. So I want to give a big shout out to Rabbit on Down the Rabbit Hole. She does such great work. I respect her and I appreciate her so much. So we've been on for almost an hour and a half. And Blackwater too. No, Anna Bees. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to wrap up too, BoobTube. That sounds perfect. You guys said about the email. And then BoobTube says, I'll be out of chat for a bit. We'll still be listening. And Blackwater too. Thank you. I do not know about Blackwater. I know of a company called Sweetwater in Indiana, but they're like a recording company, I think. But let's see, Blackwater. I'll have to check that out. Huh. Wow. Let's see. That's the wrong. No, this is the right notebook, actually. I was going to say that's the notebook I just finished. That's the notebook I just finished. This is the one that I am in today. And just wanting to make sure I got all of this. Okay. One more thing that I want to mention. I don't think I've mentioned this, and I've wanted to so many times. And I don't think I've seen anybody else mention it either. And it's just like, dang, it's so obvious. When people like Pam Bondi say, oh, the files are right on my desk. Well, when I said the files, I meant the JFK files. I meant the MLK files and, the Epstein files. I meant all of them. I didn't mean like the list, the client list. Like I know I said client list, but I meant the MLK, JFK, email, blah, 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 blah. Like, who else did that exact same thing when he went on to an interview with Fox News with Maria Bartoloni, with Dan Bongino, the deputy director of the FBI, and then the director of the FBI with the big eyes so wide open you can't see straight. He did that exact same thing when he said, let me just tell you that what that was with Little E's fatal getting Epsteined, that he Epsteined himself. And I know this, and, I know everything about the JFK files. I know everything about the MLK files. I know everything about 9/11. It's like they want to rattle all this off to try to confuse, to obfuscate. And it's really frustrating. It's like, we're not talking about 9/11 at the moment. We're not talking about JFK at the moment. We're not talking about MLK at the moment. We're talking about the little girls that have been violated, exploited, lives destroyed, reputations destroyed, families destroyed. Let's stay focused, MFs. Focus, focus, focus. So, yeah. When we're talking about the E-files, we're not talking about the MLK files. We're not talking about the JFK files. We're not talking about the 9/11 files. We're talking about Jeffrey and his relationship to our dear leader. And remember, these are two businessmen, business guys that only do transactional. Everything they do is transactional. They only do transactional exchanges. They don't do social exchanges. They don't just trade niceties, make each other little birthday cards with drawings. It's always going to be transactional. And the crap alluded to in that crazy birthday letter, the bawdy birthday letter, bawdy birthday letter, is so, what's the word? It's so like daunting and cryptic. That's the word I'm looking for. It's so cryptic what's being alluded to, but nothing is being admitted to. So it's just insane that instead of the Trumpster fire just saying, so what? I wrote him a bawdy birthday letter. Get over it. It's locker room talk. People, I'm so brave. I say locker room talk. I'm braver than guys that go to war and fight for our country and die for our country because I say locker room talk. God, what a pig. What a freaking pig. But then he tries to say, I never wrote a picture. And then his son tries to say, my dad doesn't know big words like enigma. Are you kidding me? And then everyone's posting all the pictures that he's written, all the drawings that he's written, and posting the videotape footage of him talking about enigmas. Yeah, I wanted to make a joke about enemas, but anyway, I think I'll wrap it up on that. I think they have to do with movies. Blackwater 2. Oh, I think you're right. I think that I'm picturing in my mind that, like you see the black screen with the water dripping and it says Blackwater. Like I said, my phone's on the ground and I was like looking everything up in my last video, so I'm not going to look up anything today. Since it fell as a message from God. Somebody special like me. Sorry. I just had to laugh my effing A off, enemas. I'm dying. Oh, boob tube. Thank you for that. Yeah, we got to laugh, don't we? I mean, laugh and cry, all of it. So, yeah, I just want to go back to Ghislaine taking girls' passports when they would fly them down to the Virgin Islands. And do you know, I think I mentioned this in one of my last videos, that the Virgin Islands is suing the Epstein estate for bringing a bunch of trafficked kids to their freaking islands. It's an active lawsuit right now, to my understanding. The Virgin Islands is suing the little E estate for millions of dollars for trafficking kids on their turf. So on that, I'm going to say thank you so much for being here. You guys mean the world to me. Check out the Jess Michaels interviews with Katie Couric, and I think it's Aaron Parnas is the content creator that she interviewed with today. And I was so glad that I caught that, because all of these notes and pretty much everything I'm sharing, except for this stuff about Amy Bradley, was what I was going to talk about yesterday, and I was dying to talk about it, but I was just so exhausted from my teeth fighting with the orthodontist and his assistant for so long. It took them forever just to get the 8 things in there. My teeth were closer together than they've had to deal with. Like I said, the assistant, 42 years she's been doing this. The orthodontist is my age, so I don't think he's been doing it for quite that long, but close. She actually said that she was his dad's or granddad's assistant. So yeah. And so I only found out all the stuff about Amy Bradley yesterday evening. Like I said, I've seen pictures of her before. I've seen her name before. I think she's still alive. It's fascinating. Watch that Netflix series. I'll try to put a link to the part of it in the description. Usually you can put a link to a trailer or something like that. And then, and yeah, I'm glad that I actually got to see Aaron, what did I say his name is? Parnas. I'm glad that I got to see his interview with Jess Michaels before making my video about her interview with Katie Couric, just because the interviews were so different. And that's just because every time you tell your story, you're going to tell it different. So it's fascinating to have already watched the Katie Couric interview twice. So I knew it pretty well. And so I knew what the answers were to some of his questions. And I'm not saying she changed her story whatsoever. It's just that, it was a different day, a different conversation. And the things that she brought up were, they were consistent. The two interviews were entirely consistent with each other, but very, very different, because every time you tell your story, that's going to be different. Like for instance, in one of my last yoga groups, we told our life story. And I've told my life story a couple of times, and one of those times was in graduate school. And I wasn't feeling well that day, and I didn't have any notes. Like, I usually will have at least a couple of notes to kind of keep me on track, make sure I hit on some points that I want to hit on. And I never told my life story the way I told it that day. And it was just fascinating to me. It was just like, wow, I didn't expect that to come up, or that, or, just to go into great detail about things that I don't usually even bring up. I'll share it with you guys someday. My life story. If you're curious, I'd be happy to. I mean, you guys know most of it if you've been here for a lot of the videos for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. I mean, I'm pretty transparent about my crap, just because that's how I help myself, and I hope to help others too. So love and light, you guys. Have a great afternoon. It's almost 3:00. It is a Wednesday, and I hope to do my videos. Tomorrow and Friday. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm not so sure about Friday, but hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to do a video. On Friday, I don't know. I'm hoping to go to a concert, so we'll see. Thank you, Jazz and BT. You're both so good at exposing the truth. I hope you feel better soon, Jazz. Oh, yeah, my teeth are fine. Actually, it feels good to have those spacers in there. It's just weird, and I am talking a little bit weird. But at least I could do it. Like yesterday, I was exhausted, and I just felt like I could barely talk. I mean, I can hear me lisp a little bit, but it's not as bad as it was last night. It was really bad, trying to get used to it. Bye, everyone. Hope to see you all soon. Have a lovely afternoon. Don't forget to drink your water, eat your protein, eat your produce, and relax. And most importantly, be yourself. And I might be redoing all this again, but I don't know. Leave well enough alone, right? Don't fix what's not broken. Much love, Annabes, Jazz, and watchers. Yes, thanks everybody for being here. And don't forget to hit your like button. It looks like everyone has. Share the video. And if you feel like contributing, I'm very grateful for any and all contributions. I have links to my Cash App and all that stuff in my description, and in the description of most of the videos. I haven't put it in this one yet, I don't think, but I also have it on the description of my channel. All right. Don't forget your enema joke next time. Enigma. I don't even know what that is. Okay. All right. You're the best. You're the bomb. See you soon.